Bill Gates' story begins in the quiet neighborhoods of Seattle, Washington, where William Henry Gates III was born on October 28, 1955. His upbringing was comfortable but disciplined, shaped by a family that valued both achievement and contribution. His father, William H. Gates Sr., was a towering figure in law, a man of authority and intellect, while his mother, Mary Maxwell Gates, was deeply involved in civic organizations and education. Together, they instilled in their children a competitive spirit and a sense of purpose. Gates, even as a boy, showed signs of unusual curiosity and determination. He would often retreat into books, reading encyclopedias page by page, memorizing facts, and losing himself in subjects most children his age would never touch. He was not merely intelligent, he had a restless energy, a hunger to learn that could not be easily satisfied. The defining moment of his youth came when the Lakeside School, a private preparatory institution where Gates was enrolled, decided to purchase a computer terminal in the late 1960s. This was a rare opportunity. At a time when computers were still massive, expensive machines housed in universities or corporate labs, Lakeside students had a chance to interact with one. For most students, it was a novelty, but for Gates, it was an awakening. He quickly learned programming, experimenting with the machine late into the night. Along with a group of friends, including Paul Allen, he pushed the limits of what they could do. They even hacked into the system once, not to cause harm, but to extend their access time. Instead of punishment, their talent was recognized, and they were allowed to keep working with the computers. Gates later described those hours as magical, the start of an obsession that would define his life. By the time he was in his teens, Gates was already coding solutions for real problems. He'd a program for his school to schedule classes, cleverly tweaking the algorithm so that he was placed in classes with more girls. This playful manipulation revealed both his intellect and his mischievous creativity. More importantly, it showed his early ability to blend technical skill with strategic thinking, an ability that would later build an empire. His partnership with Paul Allen grew stronger during these years. While Gates was analytical, ambitious, and laser-focused, Allen was imaginative and visionary, often seeing big possibilities in emerging technology. Together, they were the perfect pair, each complementing the other. When Gates entered Harvard University in 1973, it was not because he had a clear passion for law or medicine, as his parents might have hoped. He was simply following the expected path of an intelligent young man from a prestigious background. Yet even at Harvard, his heart remained with computers. He spent more time in the computer lab than in lectures, often skipping classes to code late into the night. His classmates recall him as intensely focused, sometimes eccentric, with an energy that seemed boundless. It was during these years that Paul Allen showed Gates the now famous issue of Popular Electronics magazine featuring the Altair 8800. This was the dawn of personal computing, and Gates immediately saw its potential. In a bold move, Gates and Allen contacted the makers of the Altair MITS, claiming they had developed software that could run on the machine. In reality, they had nothing yet. But Gates' confidence was unwavering. He believed they could deliver. Over weeks of sleepless coding sessions, they created a version of BASIC that ran successfully on the Altair. When they demonstrated it to MITS and it worked on the first try, they were offered a contract. It was not just a business deal. It was the birth of Microsoft, the competition. NE's name, short for microcomputer software, carried a mission that was both simple and revolutionary: to bring software to the emerging world of personal computers. Leaving Harvard in 1975 was not a casual decision for Gates. It meant abandoning the safety of an Ivy League degree for an uncertain future. But Gates trusted his instincts. He and Allen set up shop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where MITS was based. They worked tirelessly, coding for long hours, living frugally, and pouring everything into the fledgling company. But what separated Gates from many other programmers of the time was his ability to combine technical brilliance with business acumen. He was not just writing code, he was negotiating deals, securing contracts, and positioning Microsoft for growth. The turning point came when IBM, the giant of the computing world, decided to enter the personal computer market. They needed an operating system, and they approached Gates. Microsoft did not yet have an OS, but Gates saw an opportunity. He quickly negotiated to provide one, then purchased an existing system from a small company called Seattle Computer Products, modified it, and presented it to IBM as MS-DOS. The brilliance lay in the fact that Gates retained the licensing rights. IBM got what it wanted, but Microsoft retained ownership of the software, meaning it could sell MS-DOS to other hardware manufacturers as well. This strategic decision changed the history of computing. As IBM PCs spread across businesses and homes, Microsoft's software went with them. Gates had built a model that ensured Microsoft would dominate the software industry. Unlike hardware, which could be copied and improved by competitors, software was endlessly scalable. One version of MS-DOS could be sold to millions without the need for factories or materials. By the mid-1980s, Microsoft was exploding in size, and Gates' vision was being realized. The release of Windows in 1985, offering a graphical user interface, made computing even more accessible. The dream Gates had as a teenager, that computers would one day be in every home, was coming true, and he was the one making it happen. At the same time, Gates developed a reputation for his management style. He was intense, often intimidating, and relentlessly focused on results. He was known for his think weeks, retreats where he would isolate himself with nothing but documents and research, reading and writing notes that shaped Microsoft's future. Employees recalled his piercing questions in meetings, questions so precise and relentless that they forced people to think harder and work smarter. Gates could be difficult, but he was always brilliant, and his standards pushed Microsoft to dominate. By the early 1990s, Microsoft was not just successful, it was the most influential software company in the world. Gates, at only 31, had become the youngest billionaire in history, yet his drive did not slow down. He wanted more than success, he wanted ubiquity. He wanted Microsoft software on every computer in the world, and for a time, that is exactly what happened. Success on this scale inevitably brought challenges. As Microsoft grew more powerful, critics accused the company of monopolistic practices. Competitors claimed Gates was using Microsoft's dominance to crush innovation and control the industry. The U.S. government launched antitrust investigations, leading to one of the most famous trials in corporate history. Gates, usually calm and strategic, faced harsh scrutiny. His deposition, at times defensive and combative, was widely publicized. The case ended with Microsoft being labeled a monopoly, though it avoided being broken up. For Gates, it was a humbling chapter, but it did little to slow Microsoft's dominance. Behind the corporate battles, however, Gates' interests were beginning to shift. He had achieved more wealth than anyone could imagine. By the mid-1990s, he was the richest man on earth, with a fortune growing faster than any in history. But Gates began to ask himself deeper questions. What was the point of all this wealth? What impact could he leave behind? This reflection led him to philanthropy. In 2000, together with his wife Melinda, he launched the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation. Unlike traditional charities, this foundation was built with the same precision and ambition that defined Microsoft. Gates applied his analytical mind to global problems, focusing on issues where technology, funding, and strategy could create real change. One of the foundation's earliest missions was global health. Gates was shocked by the fact that millions of children in poor countries died of preventable diseases. Vaccines, sanitation, and education, things taken for granted in wealthy nations, were often out of reach elsewhere. Gates committed billions to eradicating diseases like polio and malaria. He partnered with global organizations, invested in research, and funded massive distribution programs. His efforts have been credited with saving millions of lives. Gates also turned his attention to education, advocating for improved systems in the United States and better access worldwide. Meanwhile, Gates' rivalry with Steve Jobs became legendary. Though the two started as collaborators, Microsoft created software for Apple in the early days. Their visions diverged. Jobs saw beauty, design, and artistry in computing, while Gates focused on accessibility, functionality, and dominance. Their clashes were personal and professional, marked by moments of friendship and betrayal. Jobs once accused Gates of stealing ideas, to which Gates famously replied, "Well, Steve, I think it's more like we both had this rich neighbor named Xerox, and I broke into his house to steal the TV and found out you had already stolen it." Their rivalry fueled innovation and shaped the direction of the industry. Even as Gates transitioned out of his role as Microsoft's CEO in 2000 to focus more on philanthropy, his influence remained strong. He continued to guide the company while devoting increasing energy to global issues. His think weeks were now filled with papers on agriculture, sanitation, and vaccines instead of programming languages. His transformation from ruthless businessman to humanitarian surprised many, but it reflected the same underlying trait, a belief that with the right ideas, strategy, and execution, anything could be achieved. Yet Gates' personal life was not without difficulty. His marriage to Melinda, which had been a cornerstone of his public image, ended in divorce in 2021. The split raised questions about his personal choices and relationships, but it did little to tarnish his philanthropic legacy. He remains one of the most influential figures in global development, admired for his commitment to tackling challenges many others ignore. From his teenage years at Lakeside to dropping out of Harvard to building Microsoft into a software empire to becoming the world's richest man, and finally to dedicating his fortune to the world's most vulnerable, Bill Gates' story is one of vision, risk, ambition, and transformation. It is a reminder that greatness often comes from daring to see what others cannot, from taking risks when the safe path beckons, and from using one's gifts not just to achieve personal success, but to create change on a global scale. His journey shows that history is not only written by those who succeed financially, but also by those who redefine what success means. For Gates, the untold history is not just about becoming the richest man in the world. It is about using that wealth and influence to leave behind a legacy far greater than money. From Harvard dropout to the world's richest man, his life demonstrates the extraordinary power of vision and determination, and how one man's dream to put a computer in every home ended up changing the world forever